Hello to friends. Today we will talk about refining or recrafting, or processing resources. What it is, how it works and how to make money on it. In general, I will try to explain as simply and in detail as possible. And from you, as usual, I'm waiting for a thumbs up and a subscription to the channel, if you haven't done it yet. So, let's go. What is resource recrafting? This is the creation of materials from raw materials that are extracted to a greater extent in the open world. For example, the creation of ingots from ore or timber beams, which in turn will already be used to create items of the type of armor, weapons, tools and other things. That is, in fact, this is the initial stage of crafting, which is a very simple mechanic at first glance. The creation of any material above the second tier includes several units of raw resource and one unit of already finished material. For example, when creating an ingot of the fourth tier, you need 2 ores of the fourth tier and 1 ingot of the third tier. And so on ascending to the 8th tier. That is, the 8th tier ingot will include all the previous tiers, thus making the extraction and recrafting of even low-level resources always relevant. As we can see, creating the 8th tier ingot, we spend a large amount of resources, which simply does not pay for itself at market value. So how do you make money on this? To do this, there is such a mechanic as the return of resources during crafting and recrafting, which makes production more profitable. The basic return on recrafting is 15 and 2% in any big city. But there are also specialized cities for the recrafting of each type of resource, information about which can be viewed in a separate menu of the mini-map of the city. Arriving in such a city, the return will already be 36 and 7% with which you can already work and earn by creating low-level materials. For a higher tier, somewhere in the 6th plus, you will already need focusing. Focus increases the percentage of resource returns. It accumulates 10,000 points daily with a premium account. Therefore, for this lesson, of course, you will need to purchase a premium. The focus consumption depends on your skill of recrafting. The higher skill of recrafting, the less focus the recrafting will spend, and the more resources you will be able to process. Also, the return of resources is affected by daily activity that changes daily, increasing the return of resources during crafting or recrafting by a day. At such moments, you can produce an even higher tier without focusing on yourself as a plus, especially with a 20% bonus. So, we figured out the basic mechanics. Let's now consider the chain of recrafting to earn silver. It all starts with a raw resource. Where do we get it? Of course, at the beginning of your journey, when you don't have at least a few million silver, you can start by farming resources. We farm raw materials with our hands and later process it into material. But in the future you will have to increase production volumes and it will become almost impossible to collect everything with your hands, especially if you can already farm the 6th or 7th tier, then going and farm the 4th tier is absolutely unprofitable in terms of time costs, which means it's time to start with the purchase of a resource. How and where to buy? Creating purchase orders. It will be cheaper than buying everything from the market at once. But I will say, not always, so first we look at the prices, and then we act. If you have created orders, then at least once a day you will need to rearrange the price tag, since no one has cancelled the competition. Ideally, of course, to make a purchase in a city where there will be a lot of resources and it will be cheaper. For example, if our goal is a wooden planks, which has a bonus for recrafting in Fort Sterling, then ideally buy logs for this process in Lumhurst, where there are many locations with a forest biome, or in Thetford. At the same time, these cities border the fort and transportation will not take much time. Speaking of resource transportation, here we will need a cargo mount, ideally of course a transport mammoth, but it all depends on your money, so choosing some bull or bear to start with will also go. We carry exclusively on blue and yellow locations, and for greater carrying capacity we buy any boots with a passive weight, a bag. We also eat a pie to increase weight, and if possible, we put on a gatherer's backpack for one or another type of resource to reduce its weight by 30%. After purchasing and transporting the resource, we proceed to recrafting. I have already told you about the refund, but I would like to have an idea of the profit, how to count it all. There are certain formulas, but it will be easier to use this calculator. Everything is really simple here. We choose a resource, crafting with or without focus, the cost of crafting on the workshop, manually specify the price of the resource at which you purchased it, since the calculation there is at an average cost. And we get a detailed profit report as a percentage. Very comfortable. All profits will depend on the optimization of the entire process. You either earn on large volumes of a low-level resource without using focus, or you earn on a high tier when using focus. And what exactly to craft and what tier, consider for yourself. That's why I showed you everything. After we have finished with the main task, we move on to the most pleasant, the sale of materials. You can do this as standard through an auction, selling those materials that are in demand in this city the most. For example, if there is a bonus for crafting leather items in the city, we take the leather there. But first, of course, we look at the price tags, since this is not always an indicator. The second option is to sell through trading discords. That is, we publish an announcement about the sale of some resource, bypassing the auction tax. This is 4% with a premium and 8% without it. At the same time, it is not a fact that everything will be bought from you the first time, and you will have to rearrange the orders, so you may lose this percentage of tax again. Also in Discord you can find both suppliers of raw materials and regular customers. In general, I advise you to increase profits, but the auction is stupidly easier, since you don't have to bother and communicate with someone there once again. I left a couple of such discords in the description, and as an advertisement, I also left my Discord. It also has a trading chat. If you have the opportunity to hold the materials, then there are days in which you can get a very large profit from the sale. As many have already guessed, these are all the same daily activities, and in the days of a high crafting bonus of 20%, you can make a good profit by taking materials to the city with bonus crafting. The prices there are very pleasant, and sometimes even a certain tier can simply be redeemed to 0, which is why the price tag jumps up to 150% of the norm. And of course, you yourself have the option not to sell your works, but to use all this in crafting items on another character. Thus creating a large crafting chain, about which there are separate videos on the channel. But it is not translated into English. The result of the recrafting is quite simple. The more money you have, the more money it will bring you. Because by increasing your production power, adding additional characters with focus and purchasing more and more resources, you will receive more and more silver from this. And it is limited only by the time spent on all these gestures and your budget. Well, I hope I explained in sufficient detail for such a way of earning as the recrafting of resources. If you have any questions, write in the comments. And also do not forget to put likes, subscribe to the channel, go to the Telegram and Discord, where you can find announcements of all streams, which by the way occur mostly on Twitch. The link to all this will be in the description. Oh, yes, I almost forgot about the second channel with cuts, there is also a lot of fan stuff there. That's all, Regaro was with you and we'll see you again in the vastness of Albion.